Nick, can you believe we're now just 6 days away from the Switch 2 blowout, which is apparently 144 hours away? We are getting within, like, I don't know, throwing distance. I can basically taste it already. Should I be tasting a Switch 2?
I don't know.
I might be having a stroke, actually, so, with how hectic this week has been. In any case, as people probably know, every day we've been doing a countdown with a different topic every day. Today, I want to talk more about something I'm really excited for, being the mouse functionality of the Switch 2. Like here, I can even show it off of my mock-up where you can take the Joy-Con off and use it as a mouse. Because this is, I mean, it's honestly the only truly new thing we've seen about the Switch 2 so far. I'm sure there'll be more during the blowout, but I want to talk about this one feature we do know. And as part of this, we're going to be individually giving our top 5 games, so top games in total, that we think would benefit the most from having this mouse functionality. But before we get to our top 10 list, I also want to talk about other games that will benefit in general, because I think there's some broad topics here that a ton of games would fall into and would really benefit from having a mouse. So before we get to that though, Nick, how are you feeling about this mouse feature in general? Which, by the way, just to clear, like, it's for anyone doubting, it is basically confirmed, alright guys? We had the patents, Nintendo freaking showed off them running like a little cute mouse. Of course it's a mouse. So Nick, how are you feeling about it? Are you excited for this as a feature, and do you think we'll see a lot of it on Switch 2? Including at the event.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a good amount of this next week at the Switch 2 event. And I'm pretty excited for this feature because honestly, I use a mouse and keyboard almost every day just for working.
Yeah,
so
I think
to have that,
right.
so to have that as an option for my games, because I'm not a big PC gamer, so to have it brought over to the console space just naturally, like I don't have to set up a keyboard mouse or anything. I just pull off the Joy-Con and I can just use it on like a table or even like on my leg or something. Like that would be perfect. I can see this totally working.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's funny because, you know, on the one hand, mouses are nothing new, right? It's all, we've been using them forever. We've been using them for work, so it's not, you know, it's on one level it's not that exciting. It's like, oh, cool, something I use for work every day, I can use on my gaming machine, my Switch. But on the other hand, it's like, no, mouses are actually pretty darn good for games, right? It allows you a level of precision and a level of speed that you just can't get on any other input device. The only one that's gone close will be the Wii Pointer, which I personally still think is brilliant, but we know that it's not here. But the mouse not only is a good stand-in for it, but it has, you know, its own benefits as well. And I'm so excited to see how Nintendo themselves are going to take advantage of this feature. But I think it's going to benefit games in both small ways and big ways. And of course, it's the big ways I'm really excited about, but I think it's the smaller ways too that people might be underappreciating how much it can add to games that basically already, like games already on Switch, could really make good use of. So yeah, any more thoughts on that before we dive into how games could benefit?
Yeah, like you said, we've been using it for such a long time, just in everyday life or just working, so it just makes sense to have Nintendo add this as their next thing. The thing is, like, I think I think people might not be as excited as this feature as the motion controls were, because we weren't using motion controls every day, right? We're using a mouse every day, but motion controls were like, what? Like, if you explain that to someone, you just move your hand and you do something? Or if you explain to someone, oh, you use a mouse to play games? Okay, that makes sense. But to see Nintendo put a Nintendo twist on it, that's what I'm most excited for.
Yeah, bingo, you're totally nailing it right there. I mean, I think it's kind of funny, but I think, you know, on a base level, motion controls just sound way more exciting, right? Like, that sounds amazing. Like, I can, you know, like, throw a whip, like, or crack a whip like this, great, or using a grappling hook. But the reality of it is that it's kind of annoying at times, too, and a lot of people didn't love Waggle or motion controls in general, even though I think, you know, the Wii era, like, had a very kind of rudimentary form of them before the Wii Motion Plus came out. So that didn't give it the best starting point either outside of Wii Sports. So the thing with the mouse is kind of not nearly as exciting on the surface, but I think it can lead to games that are potentially, you know, more useful for or a better fit for that. But also I think people will just use it more, you know, or like using it more as well. Assuming it's comfortable to use in all kinds of gaming situations, like on your couch or in a chair or even handheld mode, you know, and it's good. That's the main hurdle for it is this practical to use when you're not at a desk or table? I've already made a couple videos addressing this to some degree, and I don't think it's a major issue, but we'll have to wait and see, right?
Yeah, and on top of that too, what was I just going to say? Yeah, on top of that too, when you're using the actual controller, like, yeah, the handheld mode might be a hurdle for it, and I hope that this isn't going to be like the thing forward for Nintendo. I hope like traditional controls are going to be an extra option or an alternative option to this, because like if you play some of those older Wii games, they require motion controls where I just want to use the classic control or maybe the GameCube controller. It's like, no, I just want to sit back and relax. I don't want to go like this just to play my game.
Great, actually, that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. Even I do hope that they retain those alternatives whenever it makes sense, which will probably be most of the time. Because there are times, like, VR, super cool. I don't be flooding my arms all the time. That's why I barely even play it these days, right? I just want to sit down and relax. And granted, a mouse isn't at all like that. And we already have such a strong, community of gamers on PC who use mice for their games, and it works well. So we know it can work. It's a proven asset. Even Nintendo themselves used it on the SNES. Not to get too ahead of myself here. All right, so the fact that we know it can work, we're excited for it. Let's talk, before we get to our top 10 games that can make use of it, that we think could benefit from it, let's address kind of gaming in general, and how some games could still benefit from it in this sense. Because, obviously, I think one of the most common uses for a mouse will be just menus. Whether the game is based around it or a game has a lot of elements of menus, they will all benefit greatly from this. Here's some examples. Animal Crossing, rearranging your inventory, or of course your house even, which is kind of a pain on controllers. Especially because the newest one.
Are you saying like New Horizons?
New Horizons, thank you, God.
Yeah.
Man, my brain is mush after all these discussions. New Horizons, it kind of lifted the interface. Well, I guess it was the expansion that brought back that interface. I can't remember. Anyways, the DS had a good interface. Switch did not. This would allow them to make it so much better. Just sorting inventory and your furniture immediately. A few other ideas, and they can feel free to chime in at any point. Simpler ideas. Pokemon, maybe you could choose your attacks quickly from it, during battle, or quickly swap in now Pokemon. Or they could maybe it could open the door to some, newer ideas like mixing and matching type of things. Game Builder Garage actually had now support already, and now
I didn't even know that.
You didn't even know that?
No, I had no idea.
Exactly. No one knows. No one knows because who's using mice on your current Switch? God, that's an annoying word to say. I don't even know which one it is still. Whereas having it built in would make it so much more usable because you always have it. That's a big thing. Everyone's going to have it. And off that, of course, Mario Maker 3. That is the biggest one for me in terms of menu design because I hated designing on Switch 2 because I had to use it in handheld mode and that didn't interface with the TV at all. But this would solve that issue because you could just use a mouse and continue to play it on the TV as you would on Wii U.
Yeah, especially something with the Mario Maker. And I know you probably streamed that multiple times here on the channel. When you're streaming it and you're trying to make a stage, you can't because how you prefer making stages, you have to take it and put it in handheld mode. So yeah, these are some great ideas, especially Animal Crossing. I played so much New Horizons. And going through the inventory on that compared to the one on 3DS was just a pain. It was a total pain. Just going one and two. Or if I have a mouse, I can just go click and easily drag everything. Especially when you're customizing the house, it's all grid based, so you can easily move whatever objects you want anywhere in the house.
Right. No, absolutely. Like those are the games that would really benefit the most. I mean, Animal Crossing, I think, would be a natural fit for it. But then again, Mario Maker, complete game changer. I would actually want to design stages again, and it would possibly be even better than the touchscreen. Particularly because you'll have access to the button shortcuts much easier than you did on Wii U. So,
yeah, Mario Maker, Animal Crossing, and Game Builder Garage. Like I said, I had no idea. Like these would do so well with the mouse control.
And even some other games would benefit just in their menus, like. Not to a huge degree, but like Smash Brothers. It'd be a little bit easier to choose your character with it than sliding slow cursor across the screen, right?
Especially with how many characters are on the screen. It's if you could just go flick of the wrist. Oh, I picked my character. There we go.
And it's gonna be even bigger. It's gonna be even bigger. Well, it could be a bigger roster next time around if they don't completely reinvent the series. So yeah, that's and of course that's not even to count all the ports that will benefit. I play a game called Dead by Daylight. It's huge. It's big on every platform. But PC is generally the best one because of the mouse controls, like not just for the menus, but also for the actual gameplay, and anything being ported would benefit from that, being able to aim at first person and things of that nature. So,
yeah. So, but before we go on with menus, even this could add an interesting touch to the Switch UI, right? Like if you look at the Wii or you look at the Wii U menu, it has so much character. So to just go around and easily pick your channels, or one of my personal favorite things, I don't know if you did it, maybe it was in the Mii Creator, or maybe it was in the Wii U menu, where you can just touch the little Miis in the plaza and just like point and click on people. It's like, but with the mouse, it'd be so natural to do.
It's cute. Yeah, no, I was playing a game recently. I think I referenced it one other time, too. I forget what the game is. I'm so sorry to the developer. They had this awesome border around the screen during battle. It was a PC game, so if you move your mouse to the border, all the little bubbles coming out of it will like be influenced by your cursor and move around it. It's just such a small touch, but I love stuff like that. And Nintendo incorporates the mouse, which I imagine they would have to, into the OS design, or at least allowing you to use it in the OS. That'd be great. I hadn't even really thought about this. I do wonder now if this could lead to a complete reimagining of the Switch's OS, for Switch 2, just so that it does make more sense to use with a mouse. Because right now the current one doesn't really. Like, yeah, I could select a game that's, near the edge of the screen, but is that really saving me much time? Probably not. So I do wonder how it could benefit, and it could benefit. I just wonder what Nintendo's going to do for it.
Yeah, you can easily tie or sell people on, like, hey, this is the new UI for the Switch 2. You can easily navigate it with the motion control or with the mouse pointer, which you can't really do on the Switch 1. Because, again, it is so boring and generic. It's like, yeah, what are you really going to do with the mouse on that menu? You're just going to slide a little bit quicker? No, there's not much personality there.
Right, bingo. So, yeah, I would love if they have some kind of fun touches. Like, if they have themes on here, which I hope they do, they have like little touches in the backgrounds of those. Like maybe click on Mario and he jumps or does something,
Yeah, I would love that. Just have like you pick up a little Pikmin and then it just runs away after you pick it up.
Oh yeah, like that's so cute. I'm almost imagining now like if there's a like an option to like only see the theme, like the wallpaper or whatever it is, and that's when you have like a full interactive slate with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, almost like, like a little fish tank or something. Like, in the Pikmin case, where you can just play around with Pikmin if you want. Like, make every theme a game.
That's such a Nintendo thing to do, right? Like, it's just like, oh, maybe, yeah, like you said, you just get Mario and he'll just jump, and you pick up a Pikmin, or maybe you can, like, throw a Pokeball or pet a Pokemon or something. Like, that would just add so much to the UI.
Oh my god. Now I'm getting way out there. Would like incorporate Nintendogs into like the OS, right? Like you have a little dog pet, you can check it on in between games, and then off you go.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a little Tomodachi thing. Instead of them making a new Nintendogs, it's just baked into the OS, right? It's just like, oh, I gotta check up on my dog before I play my game.
Exactly. Man, I love this idea. So, all right. Well, let's move on to how it can start benefiting some other types of games. Specifically, I want to talk about how it could benefit like ports of games or remasters of games that perhaps haven't come to Switch as is. So here's some quick examples. Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, one of the final Wii U games that hasn't been ported because it needs some kind of touch interface or some kind of input device like that. Mouse would be the perfect way of going about it, and because it was a Wii U game, and it required you to have that kind of input constantly, it made it so you were basically looking at the 480p screen the entire time and missing out on the beautiful visuals on your TV. But here, that would solve this problem, because you can look at your beautiful 1080p display, or 4K display possibly, while using the mouse for it.
That would be a perfect touch to that game, right? Like,
nice.
Because I haven't played it before, but I've seen gameplay of it multiple times. But like you said, I can only imagine if you're just focused on the gamepad the entire time, that you're just missing out on everything that's on the screen. So if you have that mouse control, why not bring that game over? That'd be a perfect fit for the Switch 2.
It really would. And another game that would be its predecessor, Kirby and the Canvas Curse on the DS. And I'm going to use that as a jumping point to how maybe this is opening the door to almost every DS game on NSO. And I don't even think it would require a second screen. I mean, I would, that you plug in. I think that would be awesome. But I think it could work on the existing Switch, as kind of like they already made it work on the Wii U too. Where you just fit both screens into one if they have to, and maybe you can even use it like in tape mode, where they stack the screens this way, and then you use a mouse for the touchscreen element, obviously, and then you have the top screen there as well.
Yeah, I didn't even think about adding like NSO. Like we talk about GameCube games and possibly like Wii games, but DS games, you really do need that second screen or that interaction with the touchscreen. So again, going back to the mouse, and we don't have a keyboard here, but you have a mouse to use as a stylus on the bottom screen. It makes too much sense for these games to come back.
Oh, and there's so many games. I would love to play the Mario 64 DS mini games again, where you're launching bombs and all that. It's so fun. It's so good. Even the classic Zeldas on there, like Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, they could be playable as well. And then God, there was another game I was gonna mention. I can't remember, but yeah, you could bring the entire library over. Or actually, here's another example: if they ever bring 3DS to it, although you'd lose the 3D screen, but Kid Icarus, this would finally be an input device that can handle Kid Icarus again, right?
Yeah, this would be perfect, and I'm dying for something like that to make its way to a Nintendo platform again. I love those traditional on-rail shooters. So, and then I'll also talk about those games when we get to our top 5 games a little later in the discussion.
Right. Continuing on just a little bit, just to have a few more examples here. If they want to do more, say, Wii remasters, well, here's your Mario Galaxy 2. Finally get that proper cursor support, because that game kind of needs it with the Yoshi controls, and the mouse standing perfectly for the Wii remote pointer.
And that might have been a reason why they actually didn't include it in the 35, or what is it, 40th anniversary that came out a few years ago?
35,
because,
yeah.
again, yeah, 35, yeah, it was only Galaxy, Sunshine, and then 64. So maybe they're like, oh, we'll save this for the Switch 2, and we'll actually do hopefully a proper remake for it. Because again, like you said, it's so inherent. Yoshi's so inherent to that game, and the motion controls are so inherent to the game. So if we can actually use the mouse control for that, that would be perfect.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, Metroid Prime 3 had those pointer controls. It would work naturally on Switch 2. Maybe it'll be announced later today at the time of this recording in the Switch 1 Direct we have, right? And maybe Metroid Prime 4 as well, although I'm getting ahead of myself here. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, Nintendo already made a freaking mouse before on the Super Nintendo, and a shocking amount of games actually made use of it. If you look at the Wikipedia, there's a ton of games on there, including some that never came stateside, like Mario and Wario, which is a fun puzzle-based game that used the mouse to like control a cursor. Of course, and then I can't forget Mario Paint, the game that came with the mouse, and that'd be fun to be able to revisit on Switch 2 using this a controller that's perfect for it.
Yeah, so you bring up the Super Nintendo like that, and a lot of people probably don't know that Nintendo did the Nintendo 64 DD, and that also, I believe, had a mouse controller or like a Mario Paint feature to it. I think that's where the Mii's were first kind of introduced as well. So to kind of have that and maybe bring those DD games to the N64 NSO expansion, that'd be amazing, because again, like a lot of those games do have mouse controls already built into them.
Right, absolutely, and it'd be great for any kind of creation in a Mario Paint type series if they decide to expand it. You know, like you mentioned the 64 DD Mario Artist games, and they even had there's even like a polygonal studio where you can make your own character models and stuff. And again, that'd be much better. Well, it was good with a mouse, and it would be good still with a mouse. So yeah, maybe we can even get 64 DD games now that used it. So,
and it sounds crazy to say that, but Nintendo did release Star Fox 2 on the Super Nintendo Mini, and then eventually came to the NSO for the Super Nintendo. So to them to bring those games that already exist on other platforms or the DD over in Japan, I don't think it's too crazy to see them bring it here, especially if the Switch 2 is going to be so focused on this mouse control.
Yeah, 100% agreed. All right, let's move on to the, I think, the bulk of our conversation here, which is our top 10 games, 5 each, that we think would benefit from having mouse control. So more specifically, this isn't about menus really anymore. It's more about games where you would actually use it intrinsically with the gameplay. Although I may have a slight exception to that, but in that it may enable something that wasn't really possible before. So we'll see. But anyways, let's start off with you, Nick. What is your first game that you think would benefit from having mouse support on Switch, and what Nintendo, or Switch 2, and how it could benefit, and how Nintendo could do new things with it, perhaps?
So my first game, and you kind of touched up on one of them, is actually a 1 in 3. So I'll be talking about 3 games.
Or 3 in 1.
Yeah, 3 in 1. There we go. Yeah, it's a 3 in 1. But these games are all tied to each other because they're all on-rail shooters. And those games that I'm talking about are Star Fox, Sin and Punishment, and Kid Icarus. Because when you play those games, depending on what platform you're playing on, especially like Star Fox Zero or even Kid Icarus Uprising on 3DS, playing those games is kind of like rubbing your stomach and patting your head at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you need to be focused on what's going on the screen above, and then you also need to be moving the cursor around, especially for Star Fox Zero. Because that game is like, oh, if you're looking at the gamepad, that's where your cursor is, and if you're looking at the screen, that's where your ship is. So they're on 2 different planes. They're going 2 different directions, just like Kid Icarus, and I believe Sin and Punishment on the 64 also handles it like that. I know Sin and Punishment on the Wii is like that. So to, again, have that mouse control to move with your right hand, and to have your other Joy-Con move the analog stick, which actually controls your character. I think this is a perfect pairing for these games. And again, we haven't seen these on-rail shooters in such a long time. The last Star Fox came out in 2016. Next year, we're going to be celebrating the 10-year anniversary of no Star Fox. Kid Icarus Uprising came out on the 3DS over a decade ago, and Sin and Punishment was a Wii game. So I can see one of these 3 games coming to the Switch 2 with major mouse support.
If they ever make a sequel for Sin and Punishment, that'd be such a great fit. I will admit I'm a little hesitant on Star Fox. Although, if this is how we get Star Fox back, fine, I'll take it. But I will say, despite me not being a hater of Star Fox Zero, and even this game didn't completely separate the cursor from your ship's movement. But one thing I always liked about Star Fox is how you aim or you shoot where you're aiming, or where you're facing, right? Like your cursor and the ship are interlocked. And I'm afraid of what if a mouse could change that. But then maybe it could open the door to new possibilities. Maybe you can use the mouse as a separate aimer on top of your lasers. Like, when you can go on a bombing run, use the mouse to target precisely where you want to drop those bombs, and then you continue flying and shooting normally.
And we did see a little bit of that in Star Fox Zero. In the first level on Corneria, you have these little, I don't even know their names, but they're enemies that look like walkers, and they have bombs on their back. And the only way to really see them is if you're looking down at the gamepad and you're actually aiming it down to shoot them.
And that was sick. I actually thought that was
sick. awesome.
Yeah. So if they can actually build on the Star Fox foundation with this, hey, I'm all for it. So good idea. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, those are my 3 games. Let's go on to yours. What do you got for your first one?
My first one, it's an obvious one. I already touched on it. I've touched on it many a time, but I gotta get it out there. Metroid Prime 4. It just seems so perfect. Now, of course, this could be instantly invalidated by this Direct today. That maybe they'll be like, oh, Metroid Prime 4, Switch only, nothing new on Switch 2. We'll see. Maybe I'll have pie on my face? It's been a long day. I don't know. What am I even trying? Egg on my face. There we go. I'd rather pie on my face than egg on my face.
An egg.
But yeah, it just seems so natural. Like a game series that, as I mentioned, already had pointer controls. It's a first-person shooter, a genre famous for having mouse controls. Like, it just makes too much sense. It would be such a missed opportunity. So if this ends up being wrong, Nintendo, you screwed up, all right?
Yeah, this is the one game where I can't see them not incorporating the mouse controls with, right? It's perfect. And again, like you said, with first-person shooters, they live and breathe on PC with the mouse controls. So again, to have a flagship title as Metroid, and we've never seen Metroid unless you're playing it somehow on PC. We've never seen it with traditional like mouse and keyboard controls. So this would be a perfect fit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what's your next game there, Nick?
Yeah, so my next game is also a game that's kind of heavy with motion controls, that being Splatoon. So I got into Splatoon because I was excited for Star Fox, and Star Fox required motion controls for Star Fox Zero. So I told myself, I was like, all right, I'm going to start playing Splatoon with motion controls. And I still play Splatoon with motion controls to this day. But every once in a while, like I said, I just want to relax and kind of play on the couch. And to your point before, with the first-person shooters, with the mouse and keyboard, Splatoon it doesn't make sense not to have it for a title like Splatoon.
Yeah, it just seems like a perfect fit. Like, it's a Nintendo's version of a shooter, and it for all intents and purposes, it is a shooter. And they already have gyro controls in there, which is basically the next closest thing you can get to a mouse. Adding mouse, it just makes way too much sense. My only slight concern would be Splatoon is already sweaty enough. You throw a mouse in there, like, how's it? Like, everyone, like, it's gonna be super sweat, right? Like, it's gonna be crazy.
If you're playing stuff like Marvel Rivals or Overwatch, they separate the player base, but you can still play with PC players. But maybe they have an option for that in Splatoon, where it's like, okay, if you're using mouse and Joy-Con, you can only play with the other players that are using mouse and Joy-Con. So you do that ahead of time before you jump into your lobbies.
That's a possibility, though I do wonder if Nintendo would want to divide the user base that way.
They probably want it.
Yeah, I will say that in general, the Splatoon's actual gameplay, I don't think depends too much on pinpoint precision, except for my most hated freaking weapon class being the stupid snipers. They're already good enough. They don't need any more benefits. Maybe they should allow the mouse with anything except for the sniper class.
and that would be a Nintendo thing, right? Like, you pick your weapon, and it's like, oh, you can only use mouse with the sniper class. It would make the snipers that much better because they're already good with the motion controls. They just flick the wrist. Now that they have the mouse and keyboard, they would be destroying 10 times more.
I know, that's what's terrifying. God. They're by far my most hated thing in the game, and I would hate them even more for that. Anyways, I respect their skill level at the end. All right, now your Splatoon, I'm going to move on to, I think, a more unusual choice, perhaps. Luigi's Mansion 4. I think the game is already so perfect, I think, for a pointer-based interface of some kind. And I think having a mouse that would let you, precisely aim the flashlight or your vacuum would be so cool. This may necessitate a viewpoint change. first person could work, or I think it could still work possibly as is. It just may be a little bit trickier, may not be quite as natural to aim this way. But I think there is potential in here for this to work.
Yeah, so you mentioned first-person controls, but I've only played Dark Moon, which is 2, and the one on GameCube. I've never played 3. But does 3 even have motion controls for it?
I think it did, for at least aiming up and down. They were a little weird, a little awkward. They weren't perfect, if I remember correctly. And that's why.
But like you said,
yeah.
The current angle for Luigi's Mansion is almost like a top-down view, like a not over the angle or whatever, because
over the shoulder.
See over the shoulder. You see
it's like a dollhouse view right now.
That's exactly it. So like you said, first person would maybe be the way to go, and we've actually seen this before because there is an arcade version of Luigi's Mansion, and I believe it's in first person.
It is, right, and it has basically what I was just talking about, pointer controls with the vacuum, which is a lot of fun. And actually, to your point as well, the viewpoint you mentioned over the shoulder, that's another way of going about it. It could move the camera behind Luigi, almost Resident Evil 4 style. The point, and that way you don't lose the essence of Luigi, which I think is important. Actually, having it on screen is actually really important. But still, like, gives it that first person like gameplay where you're aiming a cursor around. And I think I actually do think Luigi's Mansion needs to be shooken up a bit. And I do like the dollhouse diorama type view, but we've had it for 3 games now, and I still think the first game is the best in the series. Maybe it needs a complete overhaul and shift, and try something new, and the mouse might be the way to go about that.
And yeah, if you're going to shake it up for Luigi's Mansion, like having that over-the-shoulder view, like a Resident Evil, would fit perfect for a horror game or a spooky game like Luigi's Mansion. So if they're going to shake it up in any way, yeah, let's change the camera angle. Let's give it the mouse controls. Let's help Luigi out a little bit.
That's such a good point, because the horror element is something the series has kind of lost over time, and this could bring it back. So you can have like a few light jump scares with ghosts like popping out in front of you, right? So that'd be fun. All right, Nick, your next game you think would benefit the most from mouse controls?
My next game is, we mentioned it earlier in the discussion, is a Mario Maker 3D. And I'm talking Mario Maker 3 as in Mario Maker 3D. We're leaving 2D Mario games. Yep. We're moving on to the 3D, whether it be in the style of 64, Sunshine Galaxy, whatever. But just being able to move around and control in 3D with the mouse, I think would work a lot better for a 3D game. Even the 2D style ones would work well with the mouse and keyboard. But for a Mario Maker 3D, I think this is the way to go.
I need this. Like, I love everything about it. Moving Mario Maker into 3D now, but I think 2D is almost overplayed at this point. Mouse control could be a great way of giving us the precision we need to, build these sandbox-like environments potentially, or whatever the level design is. 3D complicates everything, of course, so you want the best interface for it possible. I think a mouse would be perfect. And, there's already been a user-made Mario Maker game.
I did see that, yeah.
And it's shockingly good, and of course it uses the mouse. So Nintendo could absolutely nail it, and that would be so fun. Oh my goodness. Especially if they give you it would be so fun if they give you such a level of freedom where you can make even levels that aren't even that Mario-like. You can make them more, Zelda-like perhaps, more puzzle-like, more story-based. There's so much potential here, and the mouse would be such a good addition, or a good way of going about it.
Yeah, I think this is the way to go for 3D. Like you said, 2D was overplayed. We already have Super Mario Maker 2, which you can play on your Switch too. So if we got another Mario Maker 3 and it was still 2D, I think it would be, like you said, overplayed at that point.
Right. All right, I'm going to move on to my next game.
Go for it.
Being Zelda. I think there are so many potentially interesting uses for it, but it might take a little bit of rethinking of how it could work. Because from the typical Zelda viewpoint, I don't see the cursor adding much beyond aiming weapons, which we saw on the Wii version of Twilight Princess already, or inventory management, I guess. But I think there's much more interesting potential if they lean all the way into it. A little bit like the DS games did. But I think, for instance, in the camera view, we're overhead sometimes, say in dungeons, and your cursor is Navi again, and only she can activate certain things. Whether it be torches or opening levers you can't reach, or maybe she can fly through small gaps that you can't normally. And maybe you even have to carefully use the mouse to wind her through these little areas, almost like that child game, the surgery game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Doctor or
something like that? I forget what it is. I want to call it Don't Wake Daddy, but that's definitely not it.
I was Operation too.
Operation. Don't Wake
it's
Daddy. Don't wake doctor. Operation was it. And this is just off the top of my head. Like, there's so much I think they could do here, and they had explored a concept like this in some other 3D Zelda where the camera would go to a top-down view only in the dungeons that they never really returned to. So I think that'd be an interesting mixture. Out in the world, still 3D. In dungeons, you at least at times go into a top-down view. So.
Yeah, so maybe you do this for more of the traditional, like the 2D Zelda games, like the Echoes of Wisdoms or something like that, where you keep it that top-down, or even when you go into the dungeon, like you said, it is that top-down view. Because if you look at Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass, that's how it is basically the entire game. And one of my favorite features in that game, when using the stylus, you can like write little notes or kind of help you draw where to go. So if I can just do that with a mouse, and I don't actually have to pull up a keyboard on the screen and just click through, I can just say, oh, item here, or this is where I need to go next. That'd be very helpful.
I hadn't thought about that. Just bringing back the interactive map feature would be so nice. Like being able to mark things on the map and whatever it is, like, so you can remember for later, rather than having to, either forget it or write in a notebook or your phone or something. So.
Yeah, because I'm playing through Xenoblade Chronicles X right now, and they only give you like 4 options for colors for placing markers. So if I can customize that myself and just say, hey, my next spot should be here, or there's specific enemies that I want to fight over in this area, I can just write a little marker of my own, or type a little note, or write a little note.
Yeah, I love it. I like where this is going. So, all right, Nick, I think we're on to your penultimate choice. Oh, 4th, yes, perfect. So what is
on
it?
4th. So for this game originated from, I want to say, PC. Not this specific game, but this genre, which is the RTS. And that game is Pikmin. I think Pikmin would be one of the perfect games, one of the best games to use a mouse and keyboard for, or in this case, just the mouse for. Because being able to click on individual Pikmin, pick on individual Pikmin or throw them anywhere where you want to go, that precise with a mouse, I think is ideal for Pikmin.
I 100% agree, but that was going to be my next choice as well. So, way to go, Nick! No, I think Pikmin is such a perfect fit. Like, especially, starting with the Wii ports of the games, like, they added pointer controls to it, and the Pikmin 3, and, really embraced it. And the Pikmin 4 actually kind of stepped it back, which I was disappointed by. And I want them to really embrace. I think the mouse could be not just a great replacement, but allow you to do even more with it. But I do feel like Pikmin almost. It's partially losing the time limit, so it's part of the nature of the gameplay now. But I feel like I no longer need to micromanage. I just basically run around as a giant herd of Pikmin and just wait for them to complete their task before moving on. And when you have 100 Pikmin doing something, they do it pretty quick. And I missed that micromanagement element from the original game, and maybe because they felt the interface wasn't fully up to it. But now it could be with a mouse. You could easily assign groups of Pikmin, tell them to go do things, and while still using your avatar character being Olimar or whoever. And yeah, I would love if they leaned into that and made it so you need to be efficient now. You actually do need to use a mouse to its full capabilities so that you can make sure you escape in time or whatever. I don't think they'll ever fully go back to the original system of like, hey, you lose in that 30-day period, you have to restart all over, though I like that myself. But I still think there's a middle ground to be found there that they haven't quite struck yet.
Yeah, they did kind of bring it back with Pikmin 4, where you do have a side character, that being Ochi, but you can have Ochi with you basically the entire time. Where with Pikmin 3, you had 3 individual characters, so you were constantly juggling where everyone was. And that was pretty quick and snappy. So again, if we can have the mouse to just say, hey, I want to play this character, or I want to go to this character, I need like 20 Pikmin right now, I need this specific Pikmin, and you can just click on it or move them wherever. I think this is, again, ideal for Pikmin.
What would be really cool, I think, is if... I don't want to lose the element of, you controlling a main character. That's what really separated from most RTSs. But again, I think there's a better middle ground to be found, where what if, there's, a little drone you have, right? And you can hop on the drone, you can only hover in the air by a few feet, because of that top-down perspective, so you can then easily zoom around the map, and to, quickly select the Pikmin groups, and then direct them somewhere else or something.
I love that idea, and you can make the drone even look like a mouse or something, maybe like a Joy-Con. It's like, oh, when you're up here, like you said, you can only use the mouse in this function or control from this top-down view.
Right. Yep, that's it. So that'd be awesome. I'm right there with you. All right, moving on to my next game. This one is going to be so obvious once I say it. WarioWare. It is such a perfect fit, right? Because especially after... what was the last one? Was it we had Smooth Moves on Wii, then we had Move It, I think, on Switch.
It was Move It.
And both of them incorporated using the main controller in different ways, right? So I think the best way to go about it is just have the mouse be another form. Maybe a more common form because it's brand new. But I think that'd be so fun if you had mouse-based minigames where you had to drag, maybe a mouse through a cage or something, or a maze. rather. And they had touched on this before a little bit with the DS version, which used the touchscreen as well. But I think this could, that was, 20 years ago now, nearly at this point? So this could be a fun new way of reinvigorating the idea while not being entirely focused around just the mouse. So you just naturally fit it in with all the other ways you can use a Joy-Con as well.
Yeah, the WarioWare Smooth Move is probably my favorite WarioWare game, and I don't think there was any option for like a mouse for the Wiimote. And I say that because I remember some of the mini games being like, oh, you put the Wii remote on the table, and I would always play with the strap on. So maybe if you have the strap connected to the Joy-Con and you have to like move it around very slowly, so maybe it is like a mouse and cat mini game where there's like a cat trying to get you and you have to move super slow around the cat while the cat's sleeping.
Oh, that's such a good idea. That'd be fun. I love it. Don't wake Daddy. Don't wake the kitty.
Well, that was also a mini game, and I think the WarioWare one on the Wii U is you're playing the game in bed, and you had to put down the gamepad while the mom was like creeping up on you while you're trying to sleep. So
legit one of the best games on Wii U, actually.
There were.
Mini game. Yeah, that's a great idea. Or rather, yeah, I think that'd be a really fun idea. All right, Nick, we're on to your final game, I believe, right?
So, yeah, this is my final game, number 5. It's not really a game, but more so, maybe it could be tied into a game. It's more so a Me Creator tool. And this could maybe be tied into, like, what is it, Miitopia or, is Miitopia? I'm trying to think of the one on Switch. I haven't played it.
I don't remember. I think it's Miitopia. Let's go with
I think it's Miitopia, but I'm thinking more so the Me Creator, how it was on the Wii U or even just the Wii. Because I would spend hours creating a character in that. Even though it's not that detailed, I would still mess around and move like things around with the Wii remote. Like, oh, maybe I want to put like an eye up here, put a mustache where like the eyes are on my character or something. And I've been recently playing Monster Hunter Wilds, and that has a pretty detailed character creator. But if I had a mouse control just so maybe I want to move the nose up a little, like a few inches, or maybe I need to move the eyebrows down to make it a little bit more detailed. Again, this, I think mouse would come into great use for the Me Creator tool.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense as a creator tool, and would make making Miis even more fun, I think. So
yeah, and hopefully this will bring them back a little bit, because even creating Miis on the Switch is a bit of a pain to find out where you need to do that. Like, you go to your profile, you click on your icon, it's like, oh, I can make a Mii from here, but why isn't it just a regular thing?
I still think it's one of the best avatars ever made. It's like, it's so simple, and it's yet still recognizable. I think like the abstract nature of Miis helps so much, because it makes it easier to like make it resemble someone without crossing into like the uncanny valley, right? Like, I think like Xbox's avatars kind of did a little bit more. I mean, they're fine too, but I think Miis are something magical, and I would love if they embraced them more, especially if we could use them in my final game, being Mario Kart. And actually, this ties into the customization. Now, to be honest, I don't know if I want like mouse control in the actual gameplay itself. I think that'll probably go against what Mario Kart is, but I think it could enable something super cool. Being a track creator, let us finally make our own tracks. Maybe it's Mario Kart Maker. Let us finally make our own 3D tracks. You can easily drag and drop in objects, resize them using the mouse. You can easily scroll around the entire map, and it would just be great. It would just be such a perfect fit for, again, the mouse idea for almost anything creative. But Mario Kart would be so fun. I've wanted a track creator forever. Maybe now this is how they do it.
I love character creations or track creations. One of my favorite games on the PlayStation 3 was Mod Nation Racers, and that allowed you to make maps like out of the wazoo. And one of the things was like you can drag the analog stick and it would just auto track, so like auto create a track behind you. So if I can just do that with the mouse and just hey, like I want to make my own track within Mario Kart, the mouse would be ideal for a track creator in Mario Kart.
Yeah, God, I need it. I want this now. So. All right, well, those are our top 10 games we wanted to add mouse controls to, and how we think they could how these are the top games that could benefit from it, in our opinions at least. However, there's one final thing I want to touch on here, Nick, and that is, what games do we not want mouse support in? Because I'll be honest, part of the reason why I love console gaming is that I don't have to worry about the mouse. And while I am excited for it, I'm excited for what it can add, I don't think it's perfect for every game. And I have a few clear ideas for what they shouldn't be in, and I want to hear what your first thought is. You're ready to go.
Yeah, so I'm ready to go, because I didn't think about this too much, because I was like, oh, maybe all the games they're going to add this to will be a positive experience. But I remember playing Mario Odyssey on the Switch the first year, and for whatever reason, motion controls were still kind of like a thing for that game, which was odd, because if you want to do like a certain action, you would still need to shake it.
Right.
To like, if I want to throw Cappy a little bit further, I would have to shake it.
Yeah, which is weird, yeah.
Which is weird, right? Like, I just want to have everything mapped to the controllers. It's like, not like they don't have enough buttons on the controllers. Right. There's plenty. So my biggest fear is if they add it to the next 3D Mario game and kind of make it a mandatory feature in that game, kind of like they did with the motion controls in Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I can see that. Right. It could be annoying if it's implemented in such a way. But then again, I look at the pointer of Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2, and I thought those were great. So I think it depends a lot on the implementation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Here's some other series I do not want to see it in. Mario Party. I don't think it fits Mario Party at all. I think it's all about having that direct control of your character. And I almost think like I think part of the fun of Mario Party is that inherent imprecision you have, and giving you like a really precise input would go against what Mario Party is all about. Am I alone in that?
No. I totally agree with that. And the thing is, if they brought back, the last game was in the Super Mario Party series. So if the next one is a Super Mario Party game and they make it more in line with the first one on Switch, and it's like, hey, you can't play this in handheld mode or tabletop mode. You can only play it with the motion controls. I think that would drive a lot of players crazy because it's hey, yeah, we just want to play for how chaotic it is. We don't need it to be so precise.
Exactly. They need to cut out that crap. I'm tired of these minigames being locked behind control schemes, but that means I'm never going to play them probably. And most people probably won't play them. Because everyone has to be on the same page. Everyone has to have the same inputs available. It's just a pain in the butt. Stop it with doing that. Stop doing it with the Mario Party. You're wasting potential of these games. Ugh. I think most people will be happy with just 20 other games that anyone can play rather than them being locked behind motion. Yeah. All right.
Or if they do if they do it for Mario Party, have it how Mario Party, the most recent one, Mario Party Superstars?
No, Jamboree.
Jamboree, exactly, yeah. Do it how Jamboree does it, where you can just toggle it on or off, or it's just like a side mode for the motion controls, where it's like, oh, you can just play these, but they're not tied to the main game.
Yeah, if they have to fit it in, yes, that'll be the way to go about it. Unlike Super Mario Party, where everyone needed a Joy-Con, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, even though I mentioned it earlier, but I think still for menu stuff, that's fine, whatever. Anything goes for menus. When it comes to the gameplay, I don't want Smash Brothers to use the mouse controls. Like, unless they come up with some crazy new concept where it somehow makes sense, I just can't see it working. It has to be the primary inputs, and I can't imagine a situation in which mouse controls would make any sense.
I'm trying to think about that right now. I'm like, how would that make sense? I've never heard of anyone playing a fighting game with even a mouse and keyboard, right?
Yeah,
like, if you're going to play, you need the buttons.
Yeah.
So to have that tied into Smash would be kind of insane. Maybe it is like a 5th or 6th controller option, right? Because you can use the GameCube, you can use the Joy-Cons, single Joy-Con, you can use the Pro Controller. But if that was like the mandatory thing for Smash, I think a lot of people would be like, hey, wait a minute, we're not playing this one, we're going back to Ultimate.
100%. Yeah, it would probably destroy the game, which is saying something. All right, my final one. This is kind of a nitpicky one, but I was reminded instantly of how some games on Wii use the cursor in super gimmicky ways. And this is why I don't want mouse support in Mario Strikers. If there's ever another one, Mario Strikers Charged on the Wii had the stupidest goalie minigame of all time, where whenever someone used like a super shot or whatever they were called, it would go into a dumb minigame where the goalie had to move a cursor around on the screen by moving the Wii remote to block the balls. It didn't fit into the gameplay at all. It slowed down the game. It actually kind of ruined the game in my opinion, because it just completely broke the flow. And I absolutely do not want that in Mario Strikers, and by extension, any other game of that nature. Like, the super arcadey games, I don't want them putting gimmicky crap in there just to say they use the mouse.
I'm having flashbacks right now to Mario Strikers on the Wii, because I remember playing it, and it's like, oh, you would have to be so quick to catch the balls, and sometimes the Wii wouldn't even be able to detect it. So it's like, wait a minute, I'm pointing up here, oh, I thought I caught it, and then the next one's down here, oh, I thought I caught that one, and now I just lost all the goals. I think the one on Switch did it a lot better, where you just had to time it, or time the catches, or maybe that was just for kicking the ball in. But either way... I can't remember how the Switch one did it.
I don't think he had direct any control of the goalie in that case. I think it was
it only the kicker?
Or most of
the kicker had the timer. I think that's all it was, right?
Yeah,
when you charge it down. It's been so long since I played it, but to have that in Mario Strikers would be a nightmare. Again, like you said, it brought me back to playing it on the Wii, and I'm just like, wait a minute, why am I not catching these things?
Exactly. No, it'd be the worst. I mean, it took away from the core feel, and as you mentioned, it completely broke the gameplay, because your opponent could just score easy goals, and that's it. That's the game. They won by doing nothing, almost effectively, right? So
yeah.
All right, Nick. Any final thoughts at all about the mouse on Switch 2 before we wrap it up here?
I hope it's exciting, right? Like, we talk about all these possible features. I hope it's just not a secondary thing or something that they try to tack on to a little too hard or even forget over time, right? Because if you look at the Joy-Con and, what is it, like the IR sensor? Yeah, like, that's something that they used for, what, maybe the first year, maybe in 1-2 Switch, and then after that, we forgot about it. So I hope it doesn't go that way. And again, I hope they don't overcorrect, and I hope it's not in the case like Star Fox Zero, where it's like, oh, the only way to play this game is the mouse controls, is the motion controls for Star Fox Zero. So I hope they find a middle, like a balanced middle ground where they can actually entertain us and figure out how to do this in a good way.
No, I mean, you're kind of hitting on something there. Like, it's kind of a balancing act here, right? Because if you go all in on the mouse, then that's going to discourage or annoy people who don't want to play with a mouse. But then at the same time, like, if you treat it as like a completely optional feature, like, will anyone use the mouse? And how could that affect balance in games as well? If some of your users are using it and others aren't for multiplayer. So it is kind of a delicate thing, and I guess personally, I do hope it leads to new ideas. And I think between the two options, I would rather Nintendo maybe use it too much, just because I want to see what innovations it could lead to, rather than not at all. But at the same time, there is a risk of it, being annoying or coming across as, just obnoxious. And, but, again, a lot of people, a huge demographic on PCs already used to a mouse. So it may not be that big of a deal. Like, it may not be like a motion control type shift here. It's just like a kind of better version of interfaces we've already used on console, like the pointer or touchscreen. So yeah, I mean, ultimately I hope it's used a lot, and used in smart ways, rather than ways that, break the games or make them worse, so.
Yeah, like you said, one more point, a mouse. But like you said, like the PC user base has been using this their entire time playing on PC. And even if you look at some modern games on Xbox or PlayStation, and you go to their settings, they even have mouse controls already built into those games, because those games are already natively running on PC.
Right, yep, exactly right. So, it'll be fun to see what happens here on April 2nd, Nick. It's definitely the hardware feature I'm most excited for right now. So I'm really hoping it gets some love at the April 2nd event. And yeah, including Metro Prime 4, hopefully supporting it. We'll see. So, all right. Well, that's gonna wrap up for us here. Nick, where can people follow you at if they want to see more from you?
Yeah, so you can check out my channel, which is Steftendo. That's STEFTENDO. I post stuff over there on my own personal channel, but you can also see me here posting stuff with Andre on GameXplain, and as we lead up to the Switch 2 event next week.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And you can find links to all that in the description below. Otherwise, keep it locked here on GameXplain for more countdown days, including some very special guests, I think even coming up tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, should be a lot of fun as we count down the days to April 2nd. With everyone, we'll catch you later. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Bye.